And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It's Wednesday, April 24th, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me is my co-host, Joe Hagmann. He's my son. 30 years old, too. Can you believe it? Folks, together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, as heard nightly, every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Folks, I've got a feeling in my gut that we are going to be doing some weekend shows coming up as well, based on the level of news, the type of news, the specific information that we're receiving tells us that things are happening at a rapid pace, an accelerated pace, and I just want to alert you to the fact that keep our website, our home base, that's HomelandSecurityUS.com. HomelandSecurityUS.com. Keep checking that every day, only because things are changing so rapidly that if we have to get on the air, we'll let you know via that route, as well as our social networking sites and Twitter. We're both on Twitter. We're both on Facebook. The Hagmann and Hagmann Report, of course, is on Facebook as well. But anyway, Joe is with me in studio. I'm in studio. And again, we broadcast live every night from 8 to 11 p.m., 8 to 11 Eastern Time, that is. Home base, HomelandSecurityUS.com. We're also simulcast. And if you have trouble, any trouble whatsoever listening to this via our platform, VTR, definitely go to the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. That's the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com, where the audio is crystal clear. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight and for your belief and trust in us, because there are not too many people out there that you can put your trust in who, I don't know, who I'm sure their intentions are good, but we always double, triple, quadruple check our sources, our information, in order to bring you the best of news. Joe, it's been a heck of a day today. You've been running around. We've been running around. What's your take of things as they appear today?
Well, I want to say hello to everybody, and it has been a interesting day as far as news is concerned. There are many stories, all of them seemingly slow compared to the speed and intensity of last week's news, but just as important, as we are seeing certain things happen, movements of military personnel, military resources being deployed to the Middle East, money.
Right.
And this is some of the things we're going to get into.
Yeah, just to give you a thumbnail sketch of what we're going to get into as the program develops today. We're going to give you some information about Benghazi, information that you may or may not have heard. Most assuredly, ladies and gentlemen, you have not heard the information that we have about Benghazi that will knock your socks off.
Yeah, I guess there's video evidence confirming that the attack on the CIA
compound, right,
aka the consulate, aka the
the embassy,
was on video, and it shows that it was not a YouTube video protest that started this whole thing, but a armed rolling up of armed militants.
Exactly. Now, I've got to say this, Joe and I, before the show, we got together and we talked about how we're going to deliver the news to you tonight, and it's going to be very well structured. Of course, we're going to be talking about the Benghazi report that came out yesterday, what you need to know about Benghazi. We're going to be talking as well about Syria and Iran, the focus of World War III. Of course,
Jordan, too.
And Jordan, that's correct.
Turkey. Russia. No,
Yeah.
I can name a lot of countries off that are
That's right.
in
and of course,
the middle of this game that they're playing, this reorganizing of the powers in a certain way.
and the key
To fit
word
Bible
there is a certain
prophecy,
way.
really.
Yep.
But more to understand, for those of you who don't understand Bible prophecy, to set up against Israel, to set up against, they were putting in radical militant Islamists.
The Muslim Brotherhood, essentially,
Correct.
is what they're doing. Yes.
Funding them with money, weapons, people, and other resources, overthrowing governments and putting these people in power.
That's right.
All countries surrounding Israel. And that's not by mistake.
No, it's not. We're going to be delivering some economic news to you, and as well, the crisis we are all about to face. We're going to be talking a little bit about certain Hollywood things as well, which kind of interface with the plans of the Illuminati, the hidden hand, if you will. And
we're also going to be talking about some, along the economic issues, food stamps. There are stories out today that Obama is paying people to recruit folks to become part of the food stamp program.
And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, what we've discovered, and maybe you are further ahead of the game than even we are, but we've discovered that when you have for example, if you, and I know a lot of people, they wake up in the morning, they check the Drudge Report first thing, or they check, they've got a listing of news sites or even forums that they'll check first. But here's what happens. It's interesting because people will see the headline, they'll open up the link, they'll go to the story, and they'll accept the story and perhaps even post it on a forum, and then there's discussion about it. Well, what happens is the discussion or the intellectual discourse is limited to what that particular news story gives you. People fail to look elsewhere and expand upon that topic. And this is what we do. We provide the 3D aspect of it, the extra dimensional aspect of the news story. There's more to that food stamp story, and we're going to get into that. And then, of course, we're a very, very big thing. You've been hearing a lot about the Boston Marathon bombing. You've been seeing this 24/7 ad nauseum on television. My goodness.
Yeah.
These two Chechen brothers. We're not even going to try to pronounce the names. We're going to just say older brother, younger brother, suspects. But at the top of the second hour, folks, please, this will be the most important, in my view, the most important part, the most important descriptive elements tying together certain things about the Boston Marathon bombing that you have not heard elsewhere. And if you can believe that, because you think you heard it all, you haven't heard the real issues behind Boston, what's going on. And I have to say that our sources are probably the most plugged in the world. And we're going to be talking about the two different CIAs that we have. Just kind of a teaser.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you this, the CIA, the seventh floor of the CIA, they don't like us to talk about the two CIAs that exist. Just want to let you know that. They have basically said as much. They get angry when you talk about the two CIAs, the seventh floor does. Well, so we'll be talking about that too.
I want to jump in real quick. Let's start here with Boston, and let's do a quick rundown, because I did some research today on this, and I learned a few things and got some more information on things I already understood about the situation. But just a quick rundown. We had a bombing at the marathon, at the finish line of the Boston Marathon last week, the 15th of April, and there were speculation that at first, coming out of CNN and MSNBC, it was a right-wing terrorist, and they had a person of interest, a Saudi national, that they said was at the marathon, and it was possible he could be the one who committed this act. Then the storyline changed, and all of a sudden there were pictures of two gentlemen put out, along with a message from the authorities, the FBI, and the government saying, "Help! We don't know who these people are. We need your help. Here are the pictures. Can you please tell us who they are?" Meanwhile, the two guys they were looking for have been working with the FBI for the last 5 years.
We have information about these two gentlemen, specifically the older brother, that will knock your socks off, that we were able to verify.
And I want to tell you, after looking at the PDF you sent me, the one-page PDF, there's a picture of a naked man getting arrested and put into a police car. Some say it was the brother, older brother. Some say it wasn't. I thought it was at first, and then I'm looking at that picture or the video, I thought it wasn't. And then today I saw a clearer picture, which is what you sent me. And the certain features look too similar. The hairlines, yes. So I'm leaning towards yes, it was him, but not sure.
And this is something that Joe and I, and this is why one of the reasons why our program seems to have a certain dynamic, because not only are we father and son, but like every family, like your family, you sit at the dining room table, you talk, and so sometimes you agree, sometimes you disagree, sometimes you get, your 30-year-old son in the headlock, and sometimes he gets you in the headlock. Okay, it's the normal family dynamic here that goes on in addition to the investigative status. And I got to tell you, Joe's a pretty good investigator. Of course, he learned from the best, right? And that's why right. I keep telling myself that. So, and the more I tell, I'll believe it. But
now, continuing here on the Boston thing.
But you didn't believe that. So I just want to say this. You didn't believe, because you said to me, oh, no.
I don't think it is, yeah.
That naked guy. But see, what we did was we got, and I did not send this to you, the information, the one-page PDF that we received was a source from, it was an attorney that put this, I believe an attorney that put this together. And
can you post it on your site?
I will, but not right now, and there's a reason for that. Okay, but trust me when I say, again, you are not being told the truth. There are things that are being withheld from you. Now, I'm not trying to be dramatic here, but
it's not thing. I mean, just from this one PDF, I don't know if you haven't shown me everything, but just this PDF is nothing special. There's nothing secret on here that nobody has known about. But
it's just a clearer image, and it's done very nicely where you can take a look at it. But the reason I'm holding off on this just really quickly is because it's part of a larger story that's going to appear both on HomelandSecurityUS.com and CanadaFreePress.com. But you will be notified, you, the listeners, will have this information before it hits the print, and at that time we'll have the PDF up, because there's more PDFs to that.
Okay.
So anyway.
So going along with Boston, these pictures are put out by the authorities. They say, look, we cannot, we don't know who these are. Meanwhile, they were working for the same authorities that were looking for them and saying they didn't know who they are, probably as a way to distance themselves publicly. Obviously, they can't say, yes, we know who these gentlemen are. They've been working with us for 5 years. No. So they search for these guys. They put out their pictures. They search for them. They release their names. The one brother ends up dead after some things happened. Now, there's a alleged gas station robbery and an MIT officer that was killed. Well, the guy was killed. That's not being alleged or questioned. What is questioned is who did it and how was it done, and was it related to the Boston bombings.
And at the top of the second hour, we'll tell you basically things that you don't know, and you think, like I said, you think you've heard of just about everything, but things that you don't know about what did happen in Boston, and more importantly, why. Because as investigators, Joe and I sat down today, and we looked at each other, and we said, we got to go back to the basics. Follow the money and who benefits. But just as another teaser for the second hour is this. You cannot look at Boston as a city in America, the Boston bombing as a national event. You've got to look at it through the scope and through the prism of an international event. Not a national event, but an international event. And yes, the older brother was an operational asset for multiple intelligence agencies here in the United States. But again, we'll be getting into more of that later.
And I didn't know this. I just coming across this. CNN reported this. Apparently, the older brother allegedly carjacked somebody on the run when they were on the run after they went back to school at MIT and partied it up for a couple days. Somehow found out the authorities were looking for them, and they went on the run. And apparently, they stole the car. And CNN has reported that the older brother, while carjacking this person, admitted he was the one that blew up the bomb, set the bombs off in the marathon. But this is what it says here. CNN said that Watertown Police Chief Edward Duveau says the suspects behind Boston Marathon bombing also told the carjacking victim they bombed Monday's race and killed the police officer. Well, I highly doubt that. But anyway, there was one brother who was killed. Another brother was alive and on the run. They shut down a whole suburban area of Boston, and they went in there with tanks and the military pretty much, and went door to door at gunpoint, forcing people out of their homes without a warrant. They had probable cause not to go in their homes, not to point their guns at the people who lived in the neighborhoods. But they could have went door to door knocking and asking if everything was all right without guns, seeing the reaction of the people who come to the door. Usually if somebody has a gun to your head hiding behind the door in a situation like that, the people will blink or give some kind of a tell that something is not right in the house. But anyway, the long search goes on. Half of I'd say 50 houses at least, that after their civil liberties were denied and they were forced out of their homes at gunpoint, a homeowner found something, a suspect or a person in the back of his boat. Now, the authorities went to this boat and shot at it about 1,000 times. There's video out there of this you can find. Now, the younger brother, suspect number 2, is in this boat, and there was pictures of him getting out of the boat. As he gets out of the boat in this picture that you can find, just search picture of a 19-year-old bombing suspect getting out of boat. He is not hurt, wounded. He is,
or at least doesn't appear to be.
Not at all, okay? Then the next picture we see of him is him on the ground and with his throat cut and bleeding. Now, what happened? They say that, after they shot this boat full of bullets,
it actually became a Swiss boat.
Yeah, really. Then they come and they, give him a tracheotomy. They get the second guy off the boat and cut his throat so he can't talk. Literally. They cut his throat and put a thing inside of there, or whatever they did. He can't talk. But now, since he can't talk, somehow he's admitted to everything, and, case closed, pretty much. You have people cheering in the streets in Boston saying, thank you, government, you found the terrorists who, in fact, as I said earlier, and I'll say it again, were working with the FBI. And there is evidence that the younger brother did not kill the older brother, as reported by the media. There's evidence that these Blackwater agencies, other government agencies, drills being conducted on that day, Boston Police, Boston Bomb Squad, all these people were at the marathon that should not have been there, or at least not in that. The Blackwater private contracting companies did not have to be there. The bomb-sniffing police could have been there, that's fine. But really, we have to bring Blackwater in. You have the military there. You probably have undercover task force police units there. You have all these law enforcement operatives from other agencies at the finish line of the Boston Marathon. Why?
Exactly, and I've got to say this that we've been. I was talking to different sources well into the early morning hours this morning after last night's program, and of course throughout the day today, and finally. Once again, at the top of the hour, we'll lay this all out as if you are the jury in a case. We'll lay this all out. We'll give you the why. We'll give you the who's behind what. Now, there's certain things that we're not going to comment on in terms of, well, and I've been getting emails about this as well. Well, for example, we mentioned the Saudi national person of interest, Joe.
Right.
You know, Al Harvey. Okay. And
Al Harvey, who now has come out, and what you said to me earlier is, you know, what was important about what the Glenn Beck situation is not what he said, it's about what he did not say.
And it's, yes, and this is very important. Those people who listen to us and also follow Glenn Beck, and I know that his researchers listen to our show, at least parts of our show, different times. And I just want to say, you know, thank you for doing that. But I want to say this: I understand, and folks, you might not understand by that.
Okay.
But I just want to say I understand. But we're going to give you what was not given.
And I guess the way you're looking at this, what was not given, why was it not given? We really don't need to get into that, but just think of you own a business. What happens to your employees if you do A, B, C, or D? What happens to your families? What happens to, you know, there's a lot at stake. There's a lot of things that can happen to people. And sometimes they succumb to that pressure, like Ross Perot in the
exactly. And by the way, I'm glad you mentioned that, Ross Perot, because there was a legitimate threat to him. But with Glenn Beck, I've got to say this: there were a lot of people. I've seen this on a lot of different forums in scanning things where, oh, he's just a blowhard. You know, if he lives till, you know, when somebody wrote after he made that announcement, he said, if somebody wrote, well, if he lives to Monday, then we know he's just blowing hot air.
Well, I don't consider that to be the case, because for two reasons. I know
that's not how the real world works.
For freedom in this country, advocating freedom, advocating Christianity as he does, but he's also done a lot to damage his own reputation in the past and in the present. And I mean, we can all put that beside us or behind us and move forward and use the opportunities we still have to come together and to do the right thing. But I don't think I'd hold back information, even if it meant, depending on how important the information was.
Well, the way
in this circumstance, I don't think by him releasing the information that the person of interest wanted first was a frequent visitor of the White House, I don't think that would cost him much. But
that's not.
Is it important enough to lose your life over? I guess that's the question that needs to be asked.
Exactly, but that's not what he was.
No, I'm just saying an example.
Yeah, and that's a good example. But I have to say this: the information that we have will answer the questions that you're seeking. Now, it's not going to get into the minutia of what happened on the ground in Boston. It's going to give you an overview and kind of fill in most of the blanks. You have to understand too, this is an evolving investigation. But with Glenn Beck, it was in this case definitely cut him a break in terms of what happened, only because we know the backstory. And the backstory is very simply that he was put in an untenable position.
Either way,
the
information is public. So,
well, some of it is.
Okay, but anyway, the Boston bombers now, case closed according to the authorities. One man dead, killed by law enforcement. I would say probably, if he is the suspect or person being put into the back of the car naked. And the second brother, we will probably never hear from again. He'll be tried. Not tried. He'll probably plead guilty to a life sentence instead of going to trial and facing the death penalty, but we'll never hear a word from him, see him again, or anything of the sort. Kind of like the Loeffner and the other shooter. With these psyops, these people tend to disappear and never speak to the public again. But when you can't talk, it makes it even harder. So, where do we go from here? I mean,
well, no, one thing about this, though, is...
There's still an open investigation, because these two gentlemen, there's no evidence that has been shown to the American people, aside from them being present at the marathon, that they committed these acts. That's a problem.
And you might think that that's not true. Well, there's videotape of them putting the backpacks down. No, that's not a true statement. But again, we're kind of spending some time here that we at the 9 o'clock at the second hour we're going to get into a lot heavier and lay this out as if being presented to a jury, and then you decide. Now there are a lot of questions. We're going to be putting forth information, facts in the form of questions deliberately. So it's the 9 o'clock hour. But before that, let's talk about...
If we can do this, I want to play an audio and touch on this story, but I want to play the audio to see how Blog Talk System is working tonight.
Sure, let's do that.
Okay. We have from Russia Today an article talking about NATO is drowning amid austerity and lack of purpose. NATO collapse looms. Cuts in military irrelevance hang over alliance. This is the audio.
NATO's top military officer says European countries need to spend more on defense because they're free riding on American funding. Officials warn the US-led bloc is rapidly losing effectiveness and unity. Crisis-hit NATO states forced to slash their spending, of course, have already chopped $45 billion off their alliance treasury, the equivalent of Germany's entire military budget. The number of European troops in the US-led bloc has also plummeted from 2.5 million in 2000 to 1.86 million. And while the US is also trimming its defense spending, its share of the budget has still risen to 75% in total. So the benchmark of spending at least 2% of GDP on defense is now only being achieved by 3 NATO members. And as RT's Tessa Celia reports now from Brussels, the rift between alliance members is growing.
The NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen had actually come out and warned its partners against the danger of more defense spending cuts, as we've already seen, especially from its European partners. Now, this opinion was also echoed by the outgoing U.S. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta. He said that if this trend does continue, that the alliance it could be in danger in moving into what he called a collective military irrelevance. So there's the question of whether or not NATO will actually still be relevant given the decrease in its capabilities. An opinion also echoed by the former U.S. Defense Secretary Robert Gates. The problem that NATO is facing when it comes to budget is no small matter. If we just look back to more than a decade ago, in 1999, the EU had a goal of having 60,000 troops, for instance, available for battle in so-called Eurocorps. However, today we see that these battle groups range from about 1,500 to 2,500. Clearly a huge difference from the initial.
Okay. That was NATO basically saying that NATO, the military alliance, is kind of falling apart due to money issues. Well, I just want to give you some quick statistics here. 73% of the NATO defense spending is done by the United States.
That's 3/4.
Right.
Correct.
So it was 63% in 2001.
All right.
And you have the EU, who is a part of NATO, and many other countries, but we're paying the bill.
That's right.
Why are we paying the bill, and what will happen if NATO is disseminated?
Well, okay, and people have sent me, there seems to be some sort of confusion over what NATO actually is, and it's the North Atlantic Alliance, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is NATO's the acronym for.
Yeah, I have a actual file here just on NATO. I have their homepage right here.
It began, by the way, it was the treaty was signed back in 1949, and it's a collective defense system. I just want to say this. In the beginning, it was just basically kind of a political club, if you will. The Korean War pretty much pushed NATO to the forefront, and
it reads their charter. It's the North Atlantic Treaty from the 4th of April, 1949, and their charter reads as this: the parties to this treaty reaffirm their faith in the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations and their desire to live in peace with all people and all governments. They are determined to safeguard the freedom, common heritage, and civilization of their peoples, founded on the principles of democracy, individual liberty, and the rule of law. They seek to promote stability, well-being in the North Atlantic area. They are resolved to unite their efforts for collective defense and for the preservation of peace and security. They therefore agree to this North Atlantic Treaty, and there are 14 articles to their treaty.
Right.
So now the notice in this treaty is for the UN's goals and peace and safety. I mean, that's what stuck out to me.
Well, NATO, and it's failing. If you kind of compare it to the Treaty of Versailles or League of Nations, NATO is failing in a way, in a number of ways. But the U.S. and NATO together, well, the U.S. being a large part of NATO, have been promoting this New World Order. And it's interesting because over time, recently especially, people have been hearing about disagreements between NATO members about who is taking over the command of military operations. The problems began with France getting involved when and then U.S. and Britain and such. But Turkey's been one of the main countries that have been a problem child, if you will.
Yeah, and speaking of Turkey, the deployment of troops to Jordan and to Turkey,
this is part of it,
we're going to be discussing that tonight. 200 troops were deployed to the Jordan, Syrian border, and then also some to the Turkish border.
Right.
And apparently this is to safeguard the chemical weapons. This is not the public stated version.
Folks, I have to tell you this. You will see, it's my view based on intelligence or information from intelligence assets we have, you're going to see an incident take place in Syria that is going to galvanize the United States and NATO into going into Syria. Now, this is going to be a massive chemical. When I say massive,
we already have reports of that chemical weapons being used.
Right.
Yesterday we talked about this.
Right, but this is going to be much larger than that, and it's going to be the actual. I mean, we are in the beginning throes, and I keep saying this, and I get emails, people asking me to explain what I mean. We're in the beginning stages of a third world war, and as Putin stated, it's not going to be over Iran, but over Syria, and NATO plays an important part in this. Because they will be establishing certain no-fly zones and enforcing. They're going to be the NATO, led by the United States, will be the military arm that will go into Syria and ultimately topple Assad and to install the Muslim Brotherhood into Syria. And believe it or not, folks, what I'm talking about, and again, the second hour we're going to get into this a little bit more, has ties to Boston, has ties to the Boston Marathon bombing. It's hard to fathom, it's hard to wrap your head around, but we're going to try to lay this out for you in a manner which can be understood.
Yeah.
So, but NATO's collapse. I'm wondering, though, Joe, do you think that this is a real issue, or do you think that this is perhaps
a plea for money?
Well, or kind of like a disinformation kind of thing.
They're not. I'm not worried about NATO, breaking apart because there is too many other agencies, Northcom.
Right.
I mean, multinational agencies and treaties and agencies who will bring about treaties already in progress that it doesn't matter. We're already all joined together. But going to a story we talked about yesterday about President Obama giving the keynote speech at a Planned Parenthood gala on Thursday, he has now since backed out of giving the Planned Parenthood keynote address. But the headline is deceptive from the Washington Times, because if you read into the article, he will still be giving a speech for Planned Parenthood and its supporters on Friday morning. So it's not the headline speech.
The word keynote is the operative word there. Don't think for 1 minute that Obama is not supporting the Margaret Sanger approach to eugenics, and of course, Obama is fully behind it. If you look at Obama's voting record as a junior senator from Illinois, and his record all along, he's been for infanticide. He's been a big proponent of infanticide, and ultimately eugenics, which plays a big role into what we're seeing, this global agenda taking place. And eugenics, infanticide, all of this are components of the satanic New World Order type of governance, which we are going to be subjected to as the chess pieces. As we talked about, Syria, Jordan, Turkey, all of these chess pieces are being put into place. And if you look back, folks, if you look back over the last several years, or if you even go back to 2001, for example, the attack into Afghanistan, what in the world was that all about? Or more importantly, why are we still there? You know, Susan Price, PriceForJustice.com, she's been a guest on our show. Her son was basically executed in Afghanistan. The deeper we get into things, we're seeing the seedy underbelly of our efforts in countries like Iraq and Afghanistan. We're guarding the poppy fields. If the average person on the street of America knew what was going on in Iraq and Afghanistan, especially Afghanistan, the drugs that are being shipped, the money that is being used.
And the drugs.
You're muted.
The drugs are the main reason we are over there.
Exactly. And all of this ties together because the 13 families, if you will, that run this planet and are watered down and give the orders to the Trilateral Commission and the CFR and all of these agenda-setting groups. I've got to tell you something. It's hard for me to even hear my own words sometimes when I'm talking about this because, and you certainly, folks, and I'm sure you've felt this, those of you who really know the truth out there, have you tried to have a conversation about this, like with anyone? Can you, about what's really taking place in the world? Do they look at you, if you have, do they look at you like you've got, like, 2 heads and 6 eyes? It's amazing, but I've got to tell you, all of this ties together. Everything we're seeing ties together. We are watching. It's an amazing time to be alive because we're watching our nations being taken down and rebuilt and specifically a pan-Islamic, pan-Arab caliphate or pan-Islamic, pan-Arab series of states being created for the purpose of the ultimate biblical battle. And, people a lot of times don't equate political events with biblical prophecy. and it's hard not to.
But it's all coming together. The Bible is really coming alive before our very eyes.
Well, yeah, the prophecies. I think it was said 75% of the Bible is prophetic in nature or contains prophecies, and I think it's important to understand that. So,
yeah,
go ahead.
Also tonight, or just might as well cover this now. It's quick. I don't know how many of you know we covered this when it happened, but the wiretapping laws. The president has allowed all text messages, emails, and everything to be, from anybody in the U.S., to be used, looked at, collected, gathered, read, monitored. But there is a push towards an internet tax and an even bigger push to more secret internet surveillance. This article says President Obama and his administration officials have secretly authorized the interception of communications carried on portions of networks operated by AT&T and other internet service providers, a practice that might otherwise be illegal under federal wiretapping laws. You know the people who videotape police and get charged for it? This is a law they cite.
Right, and folks, let me just take this opportunity to tell you this. If you are in a state and you don't know about the wiretap statutes...
Yeah, these are audio. I mean, this is about the audio. If you disabled the audio, they couldn't do anything.
Exactly. So please, if for example, in New York State, it's a single-party consent state, meaning
it's a pain in the butt state.
No. That's
single-party consent state. Yeah,
right. In other words, it doesn't matter. You don't have, now Pennsylvania is an all-party consent state.
Yeah.
So in other words, if you're unsure of the laws of your state with respect to audio recording, then disable the audio feature of your video camera, and you're going to be out of trouble.
But don't worry about the government, because the Justice Department has granted immunity to the network providers under the wiretapping laws.
To the network.
Immunity.
To the networks.
Yes. The Wiretapping Act limits the ability of Internet providers to eavesdrop on network traffic, except when monitoring is a necessary incident to providing the service, or it takes place with a user's lawful consent. An industry representative told CNET the 2511 letters provide legal immunity to the providers by an agreement not to prosecute for criminal violations of the Wiretap Act. It is not clear how many times or how many 2511 letters were issued by the Justice Department. But there's over 1,000 pages of information that were obtained. The Justice Department is helping private companies evade wiretapping laws through an executive order of the Electronic Privacy Information Center, which obtained 1,000 pages of internal government documents and provided them to CNET. They say alarm bells should be going off now. The documents show National Security Agency, the Defense Department, were deeply involved in pressing for the secret legal authorization, with NSA Director Keith Alexander participating in some of the discussions personally, despite intentional reservations, including from industry participants. Justice Department attorneys eventually signed off on the project.
Interesting. So wrapping that up, what is that exactly? What are they saying? I mean, what's the bottom line on this one?
The secret legal authorization from the Justice Department originally applied to the cybersecurity pilot project, in which the military monitored defense contractors' internet links.
Okay.
Now, the program has been expanded by Obama to cover all critical infrastructure sectors, including energy, healthcare, and finance, starting June 12th of 2013.
Interesting. The police state is expanding. We could see it taking place right before our very eyes.
Not only in the physical martial law sense, but in the virtual.
Very much so.
And in the legal sense, under national emergency laws, which is something that we'll be talking about at some point in the future.
Yeah, and I think this also applies, and this is exemplified by Napolitano stating that Obama can pick which laws to enforce. Now, in the context of her statement that she made during her testimony, I believe it was yesterday. Yes, in fact, it was yesterday. She was referring to the Gang of Eight immigration bill before the Senate Judiciary Committee, which we covered last night, but we'll talk again tonight about this. But she was saying, look, he has that authority where he can decide which laws to enforce and which laws not. Now, she started out as a federal prosecutor. I'm talking about Napolitano now, in the Department of Justice back in 1975. Jeff Sessions did. I apologize for that. Jeff Sessions started out as a federal prosecutor in the Department of Justice in 75, and he responded to her that he had never heard of a situation in which a group of law officers sued their supervisor and in the DHS secretary for blocking them from following the law, referring to her statement, her declaration, that she said that essentially he's got ultimate authority, that agents are prohibited in some case. Well, there was an ICE agent that testified that some agents are prohibited from enforcing the law, and indeed ICE officers have filed a lawsuit to that effect, and her reply was, well, it's up to Obama which laws to enforce, and then Sessions said that he never heard of that before. So we apply that to what you're hearing in the virtual realm as well, but just consider this as all-inclusive. I suppose we should all look at this as we are all being we're all being monitored, and we're all being, every phone call, every email that you send is being collected and stored and can be used against you, and especially on Facebook and Twitter as well. Now, that's why I don't reply. The only thing I use Facebook for, and I think Joe does as well, is for business purposes.
Now, my wife, on the other hand,
we've got to stop that, right?
Put up on Saturday or Sunday. I didn't say anything about this. I know
that's his normal.
Way out of the out of the news realm, but she cooked all this wonderful food. I mean, 7-course breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Bottom line, I fell asleep with one shoe on and my jacket on a chair at about 8 o'clock at night while the opening music of the movie we rented was still playing, and she posted a picture of it on Facebook.
Yeah, that's called complete exhaustion. However, in his case, if you look close enough, you can see his blanket and binky. Now, see, I can do that because I'm his dad. But now, you know what, though? Facebook and the social networking sites, more and more, are being used by employers. They're being used by law enforcement. They're being used by all of these outside agencies as well, not for good purposes. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, when you take a photograph with your phone or a camera, the metadata that's associated with the photographs is embedded in the photograph. So you can actually get GPS coordinates where that photograph was taken from the picture that was uploaded to Facebook. And people can tell exactly when, where, and even the f-stop on the camera or the type of camera. There's a lot of information that's out there that people just that they don't know. They don't think. And it's going to be used against all of us. And Joe, you had mentioned earlier about the threat of incarceration by FEMA, and this is something we didn't plan on talking about tonight, but I'll just mention this as we get close to the end of the.
Welcome to CUBN.
And this is something that we can
Your
talk.
show is scheduled to start in 21 hours, 11 minutes.
Uh-oh.
Please call back within 15 minutes of scheduled showtime.
Thank you for using
All right.
Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
What? No, goodbye. Hello? Are we on air? I'll call in as host.
Well, this isn't good. I thought Troy called in as host. Okay.
It was my fault. I hit the hang up button.
I know. We won't make a big thing of it. We'll just go through it. Because it said, please call back and. You can start a live chat and get it back. I think we are live on Troy's End.
host too? No, this is the phone. All right, we're live on Cuban, I guess. Troy, I gotta hang up and call back into Blog Talk Radio unless. All right, there we go. All right, Troy, call in as host if you can, and then we'll jump back on. We'll keep playing on Christians United. I'll type in the chat here. Sorry. We
Operator
will
error,
be back up in a minute, and it's my fault. I pressed the hang up button on Skype on accident, and I apologize.
Well, things happen, and I'll tell you what. If we were all perfect, then wow, wouldn't that be great? But we're not. So those of those of you who are still listening at Justin TV and as we're waiting to come back on BTR, we're living in an advancing police state. We had talked earlier about the FEMA, when it was started back in 1979. Under Jimmy Carter, its initial intent, and now it is being used as an apparatus to enslave us. Ultimately, that's the objective: is the ultimate subjugation of all of us here in the United States, at least. And as we reach out to, or as we exist in other countries, as people live in other countries, we are looking at a situation that will affect you as well, because you've got the equivalent of FEMA as well.
And that's sorry for the interruption, but that
Welcome
noise
to
is
CUBN.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please enter your host PIN. When finished, press the pound key.
Our menu has recently changed. Please listen.
Since it appears you're calling back into a live show, we are reconnecting you now.
Welcome to CUBN.
all right. There we go. All right. All right, Troy, are we up? Is this Blog Talks? Are we connected here? Okay, thank you. You, Dad, call into Blog Talk. Okay, guys, all that sound issue was my fault. I clicked the hang up button on Skype instead of unmuting myself, and I really apologize because we have enough sound problems without me creating more. You're calling Troy and the old call. You got to hang up and just call Troy, not what you were on. Okay. All right. He's bringing you up here. Yep. Okay. Well, I apologize. And we are up against the break here in a few minutes. But the first hour we went over some news, and we went over a lot of different stories and more. We're going to be getting into more details on the other side. We have Okay, hold on a sec. I see what you're doing, and you are calling the wrong. You are calling the wrong phone. Here, this is what I'll do. I will add you, and there you go.
All right, there we are.
And there you are.
Thanks.
And I need you to hang up and call back, and join call.
Yeah, okay, I can do that.
This is how convoluted our audio system is. We have to actually call each other and then hang up and call back for it to sound good.
Well,
Yes. Yes. Okay, I'll do that.
you know what? And I'll tell you what. We had allotted 15 minutes for audience entertainment, and I think we've accomplished that now.
Okay.
There has to be some levity. Really, there does have to be some levity, even as we shoot our own selves in the foot at times. But at the open of this next hour, which is going to be really perhaps the most important, in my view, most important hour of audio concerning the the Boston issue. I really believe you're going to hear things that are going to make you think, that are going to expand your mind, that are going to be so incredible that you're going to think, oh my gosh, this actually makes sense. I was on the phone with Keith Hansen, and we were talking today, and he said, boy, I'm hearing all of this stuff. And I told him what I had, and he says, this, for the first time, this actually makes sense. What you're saying makes sense. People are looking for, we had talked about a condition where you are getting part of the story, but you're not getting everything else. So what the mind has a tendency to do, especially if you witness a traumatic event, that what the mind has a tendency to do is create the facts for you. It's called confabulation. You can look it up on the internet, confabulation. And a lot of times we see this in traumatic events. But the bottom line here is this. The next hour, we're going to go through the Boston Marathon and what you really need to know, tie some things together. And I got to give it to Joe. I got to give it to my sources. We've got information you're not going to hear anywhere else. And I guarantee you, at the end of this, you're going to say, wow, this makes sense.
And somebody asked in the chat room if they thought, who thinks the Boston Marathon is a false flag? I definitely believe it was something other than they said, and I think I know why, too. And that's something we're going to get into on the other side.
Yeah, as investigators.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, as investigators, you and I spoke. Who benefits and follow the money?
What were they able to do? Look at what they did to the people in those neighborhoods in Watertown, Massachusetts. And look at the people in the streets clapping, as I talked about Monday and mentioned yesterday, the deception, the amount of deception. How deceived are these people that are in the streets clapping when Osama bin Laden was reportedly killed, screaming, USA? How delusioned are these people after the Boston second suspect was caught in the streets screaming the same thing? Basically, as I saw on the InfoWars nightly news show from yesterday or the night before, and I don't get to watch those too often, but they did a little 4-minute segment where they were naming, Rob Dew was the host, and he was naming all the things that have been happening, the legislation, the problems we've been having with freedom and droning other countries, all while playing in the background people clapping and chanting USA and reporting how we're number one in suicides and taking prescription drugs and all these terrible things. Also, I'm going to be playing an audio clip and talking about China is beginning to slam the U.S. for its human rights records.
Now, wow.
Now, this is a country that kills babies because of a one-child policy it has. This is a country that uses slaved wages or slaved labor for cheap exporting goods. They're slamming our human rights record. And they're right.
You can't make this stuff up. Well,
but they're nothing to. I mean, what is it? The those who without sin cast the first stone. None of us,
yeah.
or no countries are immune, but the level of evil in this nation that is being carried out across the world with drone strikes, with our troops being in every crevice of every country in the world, not for good reasons either. They're either drug dealing, they're either money laundering, or practicing their killing techniques. But with that, we're going to break.
Precisely. Well, this last hour has been sponsored, folks, by AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. That's AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. You know, and I bring this up every program. I ask you every day, what steps have you taken to prepare? Now, you might look at us and say, what a couple of noobs, here on doing a radio show. However, it doesn't change just because the messengers mess up and just because the messengers may not be the polished professionals you're used to. What steps have you taken today to prepare? Because you know something is coming. Do you have enough food to last for 90 days? Do you have enough water stored up for 90 days? How about an emergency survival kit? Look, we have a solution to your questions, to your problems, to any issue that you might have. Give my friends a call at American Survival Wholesale. I'll give you the number, 818-720-0759. Now, I know you probably don't have a pen and paper there, but a requirement for the Hagmann Report, I should ask everyone, if you're listening to this in front of your PC, you should have a pen and paper handy. That's the best place to listen to this program, of course. But in the event that you don't, just go to their website, AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. Tell them that the Hagmann and Hagmann Report sent you, and you will receive a full-size, it's a beautiful, beautiful King James Bible in a waterproof case, free with every survival kit that you order or with purchases over $199. And I got to tell you, it's a very nice Bible, and it's a very nice case.
So it's not a free Bible. You have to buy.
Well, they're not going to send you a Bible without making a purchase, right? It's
free Bible with purchase.
With purchase. I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, the verbiage there is important. But just tell them Doug and Joe sent you. And again, free with every survival kit or purchases over $199. It's probably worth, I don't know. I've seen them in the Barnes and Noble bookstores for $35 or more. So you're getting a very good deal. So don't procrastinate. They've got the products that work with your budget or with any budget. Once again, AmericanSurvivalSupply.com. Tell them Doug and Joe sent you.
We'll be right back after the short messages. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Wednesday, April 24th, 2013. And watching our country fall to pieces by a totalitarian rod. It's not pretty. The martial law is here, and it's coming harder.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eilena Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no secret is revealed. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. Confidence that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, wrapping up some of the headlines before we start digging into some of the headlines we mentioned earlier. The New York Police Department is teaming up with the United States Lab to study airborne weapons, and we saw this in Boston about a year ago, or maybe 6 months ago. But the New York Police Department is teaming up with the National Laboratory to study how chemical weapons could be dispersed through the air system into the subway system. They are doing this by releasing gases, harmless tracer gases, they say, into the subway system to watch and mimic how the chemicals or biological agents may react if released. Police Commissioner Raymond Kelly said the study will help safeguard the city against attacks. Anyway, this is just another odd thing in my book. They did this in Boston, spraying substances into the subway to monitor their movements to see how they would, flow through the subway and to get out into the air and how that would work. Now, my question is, knowing how they use everything as a two-edged sword, technology they use for evil more so than for good, when it could be used for a lot of good. They do this with the police. We see the government agencies who are at the marathon, at the bombing. Were they being used for good? But this, are they testing it to know for themselves. So if they want to do something like this, they'll know how it's going to work and where it'll flow and how it will affect the people. Or are they doing it to really safeguard against it? Because like the installation of tons of security cameras, as Mayor Bloomberg said yesterday, we have to redefine the way we look at the Constitution. No, Mr. Bloomberg. You have to retire and go away, please. But I know another mini tyrant will stand up right in your place without the blink of an eye passing by. But regardless, will this be used? Will this study be used to prepare and safeguard the city, or to give information to the people who might one day carry out actions like this? Also, and then I'm going to give it to my dad here. Back to Syria, the U.S. has pledged to double the amount of taxpayer monies in non-lethal aid given to the rebels. Obama administration pledged on Sunday to double its non-lethal assistance to the Syrian opposition, aka Al-Qaeda, to $250 million of our taxpayer money. I don't have to expand on that.
No, that's telling by itself. Really, it's incredible. As I promised, I wanted to get into the Boston Marathon facts and kind of put this in perspective. Before I do, I just want to draw everyone's attention to a 46-page interim progress report of an ongoing investigation across 5 House committees by the U.S. House of Representatives. There was a 46-page report released yesterday, April 23rd, 2013. The executive summary states 3 things. The 46 pages are filled with a lot of redundant information, but the 3 issues here, the executive summary states that former Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton signed off on a reduction of diplomatic security forces, suggesting that this reduction of security was, in large part, to blame for the attack in Benghazi on 9/11 of last year. The report emphasizes that this is inconsistent with her sworn testimony of January 23rd, 2013.
I was just going to say, she said otherwise. She said
right
that she never was even asked.
Well, what this report is saying is that she lied. That's number one. If there's any value to the report, there's 3 bits of pieces of information to prevent so you don't have to read through the 46 pages. The first thing is she lied in her testimony, sworn testimony of January 23rd, 2013. Furthermore, the report states that the official press talking points issued by the United States intelligence community were altered by the White House and by senior State Department officials, not for any classified reason, but for the purpose of protecting the State Department. It was emphasized that these alterations were not for protecting any classified information whatsoever. In fact, concern for classified information is never mentioned in the email traffic among senior administration officials or anywhere else. So what this report, this interim report, is saying is, remember Susan Rice coming out and saying, this YouTube video is responsible for the attacks in Benghazi? Well, that was on direct orders from the White House. That was on direct orders from the State Department. You've got to understand the importance of that. That alone, those 3 points alone, comprise the entirety of importance of this Benghazi report. But, excuse me, there is a common factor, folks, between Benghazi and between Chechnya and between Boston. And I'm going to just go over this as quickly as possible trying not to drag this out, but we're going to give you some soak time for this, because this is really a lot to get your head around. This is what was not said on Monday by Glenn Beck. This was not said by anyone else, I believe, on the airwaves. One of the issues with Benghazi, and I've been hearing this over and over and over again, and this we'll circle this back around to Boston, but one of the issues is, where are the survivors, and why haven't the survivors from the attack talked? Why haven't they given any statements? They've been asked to give statements. They've been given whistleblower status. Now, you've got to understand that's a legal term that says, hey, if you tell us what happens, we'll hold you, we'll indemnify you. But see, they can't, because here's the situation. All of the survivors are operatives, intelligence operatives. This is what you're not hearing on the news. The people... let me go back just quickly, because this does fit into what we're going to talk about. The Benghazi report, it's the 46-page report about Benghazi, the attack. It's all about the diplomatic security. And if you hear on CNN or any news channel, even Fox, if you hear the talk about what happened in Benghazi, they're saying, look, Hillary Clinton approved the reduction of security in Benghazi.
What is the difference? Only 4 people died. Is that how she put it?
All right, well, what's the difference for the motive is what she said.
Okay.
But you see, the reduction of security is a red herring. It has nothing to do with anything. The reduction of security had to do with the security of the embassy in Tripoli. It had nothing to do with Benghazi. Here's the reason why the survivors can't talk. Each one of the people in Benghazi were involved with an operation, as I've said before, this, quote, buyback program, the weapons buyback program. The United States overthrew or took part in the overthrowing of Gaddafi as the leader of Libya. Libya had stockpiles of weapons, including chemical weapons, but weapons that were supposed to be rounded up by the troops that were sent over there, by the workers, the operatives that were sent over there. They were supposed to round up these weapons and make them inoperable. That was their mission. They were there to buy. It would be like in New York City or Washington, where they have these gun buyback programs. If you've got an AK-47 you're using, you don't need it anymore now because you're liberated. Turn it in. We'll buy this gun back from you using currency. Folks, your tax dollars, our tax dollars, this is behind this program. The United States funded this program. So this was coordinated by the State Department using money from the United States. But where did this money go? Did they buy back the weapons? Most assuredly they did, but they also were using that money for other purposes, including but not limited to shipping the weapons and also housing the weapons. This is something that people don't know. The survivors would testify that the weapons went to 5 warehouses in the cities of Benghazi, Misrata, and to a lesser extent Derna in Libya, eastern Libya. 5 Saudi-controlled, owned, and operated warehouses. And some of those 5 were also owned and controlled by the nation of Qatar. So, where did these weapons go instead of being destroyed? They went to these warehouses. the questions that would be asked of the survivors, well, why didn't you keep them in the storage depots, for example, that they were in to keep them safe, or why weren't they destroyed? Well, the answer is because they had a a destination. That this destination was, of course, Syria, but through Turkey, through Jordan. This is how. This is where these weapons ultimately went to, and it was because of the Turkish involvement that a meeting was scheduled in Benghazi, that the Turkish foreign minister met with Stevens to warn him, or to tell him, look, we know, Russia knows, Putin knows that things are, you're using these weapons to destabilize the Assad regime, including chemical weapons, and you've got to stop. And of course, Stevens was ultimately killed. It was not a hostage situation gone bad. It had nothing to do with a blind sheik, as you commonly, as some people on the internet claim. It was all. It's pretty much cut and dry. This is why we cannot talk to the Benghazi survivors, because any hearing would expose where the weapons went, and it would expose the Saudi aspect of the Saudi ownership and control over the facilities, these 5 warehouses. This is the key figure. In fact, that's why they cannot let the survivors be interviewed, because they were witnesses to or operatives of arms trafficking, allegedly under the auspices of free flow of weapons out of Libya. All right, now, do you see this shaping up, ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? So people say, well, let's talk to the survivors. Well, they were a part of the operation. So no, you can't really put them under oath and have them testify, because they were part of the operation or witnesses to the operation, and would expose the State Department. Now, as I said before, the State Department has, or the United States has 2 different CIAs. The one that we know about, the regular CIA with the CIA director and such, and of course, they work for the American interest. The other CIA works for the Department of State. People don't know this, and personally, I didn't know this, but the Department of State has their own CIA, because CIA assets. Now, not everyone that works for the State Department is a CIA operative, but there's the CIA presence. Okay, now this is important to remember.
Are a lot of government agencies that have a side where we'll just say they have a public side and a private side, a open side and a black side.
Correct.
A transparent side and a secret side or agency.
Okay. Well, yeah, you're correct. So why am I saying this in the context of, or when we're talking about Boston? Because who benefits in Boston and what's going on here? If you look at what happened in Boston as part of a world stage, as opposed to just the stage of America, you're going to see that we, as I said before, are doing the bidding, the dirty work, the military aspect of the Saudis. Go back to 2008 when Obama was being brought into office, or before Obama was elected, and of course all of the smaller unreported financial contributions, the $200, $300 here and there, but massive amounts of contributions made to his campaign. Where did they originate? Well, if you look closely and if you study this and if you understand where these originated from mosques, basically. Saudi mosques run by Muslim Brotherhood assets that largely flew under the radar, unreported, and they collected millions and millions of dollars. So in the run-up to the elections of 2008, Saudi Arabia put their cutout into the Oval Office. But you see, it's just not Obama, because Bush had to know George W. had to know what was going on, as well as his father, George W. Bush. Why? Because this relationship with the Saudis goes back into the 40s with Aramco. It's the oil entity, Aramco. It's this relationship, this financial oil relationship between the United States and Saudi Arabia. Why Saudi Arabia? Why aren't we drilling here in the United States or elsewhere? And why are we using Saudi oil? It's through the arrangements that were made decades and decades ago. Plus, and I didn't really realize this, folks, but there's a difference with bringing out our oil here in our country. It costs more. Our oil is different than the oil that's under Saudi control. It's called lift costs. And if you understand that, it's cheaper, for example, to get oil from Saudi Arabia than it is to drill here. But it also makes you a subservient, or puts you in a subservient role by doing so. But nonetheless, we have oil interests. Well, at the same time these oil interests were being developed, so were the intelligence interests being merged. When we talk about the State Department CIA, for example, we're talking about a joint venture, a merger, if you will, between our State Department CIA, or that faction of the State Department that is run, or the CIA that's run by the State Department, and the Saudi intelligence groups. What is happening across the world with Arab Spring? As I've said before, as Joe's and I've said it before, Saudi Arabia is actually creating this pan-Islamic state from the North Africa across to Saudi Arabia up into Syria, even.
Saudi Arabia and the forces behind the New World Order.
Exactly.
Saudi Arabia being a, I guess, proponent of the New World Order, as well as Jordan. We see all these regions getting their regime changes, the civil wars going on, Libya, the Arab Spring, like you said. And this was in the book of Daniel. It talks about this stuff happening. It says, that the spirit of the Antichrist will stretch forth his hand, and Egypt and Libya will not escape, and the gold will be plundered from Egypt.
And ultimately we're seeing that as well. This it's interesting because we ask who benefits. Is it just the Saudis? Of course not. The Saudis are working hand in hand with the Bushes and the globalists. You've got to understand that this is a globalist operation, because the Saudis are not the be-all and end-all. That the Saudis are also a pawn of the globalists, or working hand in hand with the globalists, as are the Bushes, as well as Obama, and so on. So everything that we're seeing here is a benefit to the Saudis. The Saudis had a mobster in Boston. He was there for a purpose, and I'll get into that in a second. But you have to look at where we stand on the world stage: Benghazi, Syria, Chechnya, and Boston. The fact that we are working closely, doing the bidding of Saudi oil interests and Saudi intelligence, should not be lost on anyone. And who runs Saudi Arabia oil? Of course, like I said, Aramco. The internationalists understand the low lift costs and accessibility, but who benefits, we'll say, by a pan-Arab state? The energy and the future oil. This is about a war for energy, the future oil. We know that the world runs on oil. Oil is, again, our future for heat, for food production. As we see things develop, we are looking at Obama bowing to the Saudi royal family. We are seeing, and it's kind of a matter of perspective. If you are the Saudi royal, you're seeing a bow. If you're the American taxpayer, you're seeing the other end of the bow, aren't we? We're seeing the back end of the bow. this is just absolutely incredible. When you look at the vastness of this plan. So the Saudis are using the United States to create this pan-Islamic Arab empire. They have their sights set on Syria, destabilizing Syria. Why? Well, they want their warm water port, and of course, they want to install a Muslim Brotherhood regime in Syria. Putin has said oftentimes, and Joe, you've quoted this from the Bible about Damascus, but World War III is not going to start between Israel and Iran. World War III is going to start in Syria, and perhaps even the road to Damascus is going to be the death race or the death knell or even the further burning of the fuse for World War III. But once Syria goes to the Muslim Brotherhood, then the entire region becomes destabilized. Now, what I'd like everyone to do is get a map. Look at a map of where Chechnya is. Chechnya is north of Georgia. It's west of the Caspian Sea. It's in an oil-rich area. Once again, you're seeing a template here. You're creating a need now because of two Chechens who are reportedly conducted this terrorist attack. All of a sudden, we're going to have. Oh, and by the way, let me just say this about the older brother. This is something I just learned. You're going to hear in the near future where they're going to be looking at him for a homicide, for a triple homicide. That was done a couple of years ago, I believe it was, over a drug deal gone bad. But what we're seeing here in the larger sense is about oil, it's about drugs, and it's about drugs and drug running, and it's about money, and it's about control of the future. But if you look at Chechnya, where it's west of the Caspian Sea. The Caspian Sea, of course, has got it's like a bowl full of black gold, of energy, of oil assets. And if you look as well at where the Caspian Sea lies, of course, north of the Caspian Sea is Russia. And if you look at the map in comparison where Syria is, you can see that Chechnya is part of the larger pan-Arab state. So why not open yet another front in Chechnya? And while we're at it, Azerbaijan and Armenia and Georgia and so on, all of this, and of course Iran is at the southern end of the Caspian Sea. So you're creating in Boston, what you're doing is you're creating a situation where you are identifying terrorist cells from Chechnya, just like a 9/11 did for the Taliban in Afghanistan. And if you understand the oil that we went after or the pipeline, if you understand that we were in talks with Afghanistan, with the Taliban, to run pipelines from the Caspian Sea through Afghanistan, through Turkmenistan and Afghanistan, of course. And you'll understand as well the importance of Chechnya. Now, the other thing, let's just connect some dots here and fill in some blanks. We had faces on the crowd at the finish line at the Boston Marathon. In other words, everybody at the finish line.
In other words, please, because I did not understand that. I did not understand that. So yes, in another
words. What do you mean, faces on?
You said you had faces on them.
The United States, had faces on the crowd at the finish line, at the Boston Marathon. What was not counted on was the amount of civilian videography or videographers that were present, the massive number of people who took videotape. That wasn't counted on by the people, but by the people who were behind this. Here's the information, or here are some questions. I'm gonna pose these as questions, I guess. Would it not be, or well, let me ask you this: did we not hear that there was a drill that was to take place using various government agencies, using bomb sniffing dogs? Did we not hear about this, Joe, at the beginning, at the race and all throughout the race? Didn't a University of Mobile coach say that there was this big presence where this drill was being conducted?
Yeah, and I just deleted the audio from our.
That's fine. We don't need the audio
from our queue. But the track and field coach for the University of Mobile was running in the race in the marathon, and he is a frequent marathon runner, and he was saying that he was shocked at the level of, or I'm not sure shocked was the word, but he was surprised at the level of personnel and bomb sniffing dogs and roof spotters and these different law enforcement authorities, their presence there. And he's never seen anything like it in any other race he ran. Plus, they were announcing that it was all just part of a drill, and that this was being announced through a loudspeaker before and after the explosion.
Exactly. So we had, just so everyone is clear, we had active surveillance. We, in other words, meaning the United States, our intelligence agencies had active surveillance on faces on the crowd. The intelligence agencies knew who was at the finish line, who was at the starting line, who was at various places in the crowd. They knew before the race, even before the bombing. So, and what I'm telling you is, for example, the Saudi person of interest, Al Harbi. We'll just refer to him as Al Harbi. If what I'm saying is true, and I know that it is true, why, for example, knowing that Al Harbi was present, why did we allow him to remain there? The other questions are, why does 90%, if you look at the crowd, do 90% of the people look like they're part of an operation? And Joe, you mentioned this before. It looks like what? You had people from Blackwater there. You had multiple teams with multiple backpacks. I mean, how many backpacks did you see in the finish line of people holding backpacks? Quite a few, right?
Okay, there are pictures of, and you can find these. I'll post some of them in the chat room as I find them, but there are pictures of personnel with the same shoes, pants, attire on, with earpieces in their ear, as though they are agents. We learned that these people were from Kraft, that was known as Blackwater before, the private mercenary group. Also, there were government agencies there. I just posted a link in the chat room from the Boston Globe's Twitter feed, where it's stated that it says, officials, there will be a controlled explosion opposite the library within 1 minute as part of bomb squad activities.
Okay,
now, I don't know. I mean, I didn't see that real time.
Okay.
But there were lots of people with backpacks, lots of spectators, and these military and army police personnel as well.
Okay. Let me just toss this out to you folks, and you tell me if this makes sense. We know, for example, the older brother in this Boston Marathon bombing was known to the FBI. Not only known to the FBI, but was an operational asset for the FBI. But not just the FBI, other United States intelligence agencies. So in other words, the older brother could have been, let's just say he could have been an operative for the CIA. Let's just say that, well, I'll tell you this, he got a passport. If there was any question as to his radicalization, how did he get a passport to go back to Chechnya or to Russia or wherever he went to. It was via the State Department, CIA, if you will. So let me ask you a question. Would it make sense, as you look at the drill, or as you look at the marathon in its entirety, would it make sense to you? Let's just say that they were conducting a drill that did require non-governmental personnel, but the people that work for DHS and people that work for different intelligence agencies to be there to participate in this drill. They were told that there was a drill going on. So what would this make sense to you, that the older brother, who, by the way, like I said, was an operational asset for other intelligence agencies, what if he got a phone call, let's just say 3 days before the marathon, and so by one of the intelligence agencies for whom he worked as an operational asset, and said, "Look, here's what we need you and your brother to do. We're doing this drill here at the marathon, and we need to hone up on the dogs to make sure that they can sniff out an explosive. And you don't have to bring in the explosives. We'll supply the explosives. In fact, we'll just use you as decoys. In other words, there might be 100 backpacks, and out of the 100 backpacks, maybe 2 will have live bombs in them, and yours will be empty. Just bring a backpack, if you will, you and your brother. Come to the finish line and hang out, and at this time, put your backpacks down and just walk away. And that's what we need you to do. Oh, and by the way, we're going to have facial recognition. We're going to be videotaping this whole thing, or having surveillance on it. So this is your mission. This is to help the United States. And and during that time too, when he stood up and made this announcement at a mosque about condemning the United States, condemning the wars and what have you, well, that was all part. Could it be that was all part of an operation to what he thought he was trying to identify people to come to him and that were already radicalized? In other words, he was thinking that perhaps he was helping the agencies in which he was working for. So the two suspects, is it unreasonable to suspect that maybe they believed that they were participating in a drill and that they were 2 of many that had backpacks, and that they were just going to participate just to shore up the effectiveness of the dogs and of the security personnel, and they did exactly what they were told to do. They did their, and so they did. So they laid down their backpacks, and they left. And for the next 3 days, they lived a normal life. They didn't run. Why didn't they run? If they planted those explosives, why didn't they run? They didn't. They stayed. They just did everything normal. They tweeted. They did everything normal for 3 days. Is it possible that, maybe this exercise, and let's just go back to the theory, my theory, in quotation marks, that they were believed that they were participating in the exercise. Perhaps, is it possible that the older brother called up his FBI or CIA, we'll say CIA handler, and said, "Hey, a bomb went off there. Look, something happened. I don't want to get blamed for this." And the CIA handler said, "Don't worry about this. Just don't worry about it. We got it all under control. You're fine. We have you on videotape. Your backpack doesn't match the backpack that the bomb went off in. Your brother's neither. I mean, they didn't match. Everything was fine. So just don't worry about it. Oh, and by the way, we'll pay you. Here in the next day or two, and settle things up. But you're fine. So just don't worry about it. Just go about your daily life, and we'll be in contact with you again." Well, suddenly, this enormous flood of video evidence comes forward. And everyone with a cell phone video, and everyone with a surveillance or with a camera, and even some of the surveillance footage was leaked. appeared on the internet, appeared on news broadcasts, and all of a sudden, man, they got scared. And so he calls, is it possible he calls his CA handler up and says, look, I'm afraid. And the guy says, don't worry about it. In fact, meet me at the 7-Eleven on Thursday. And we'll settle up. We'll get your account taken care of, and just to be clear that everything is fine, and we'll pay you and such. So him and his brother, and bring your brother with you too, so we can pay him as well. Although the younger brother wasn't really that in tune with the information. Now just think about this, folks, because again, they didn't run. Could it be that the 7-Eleven robbery was staged? Could it be at some point, especially at some point in time? Oh, and by the way, there was a message that was given from the older brother to the family member. I think it was the mother of his mother saying, "Hey, we didn't do it. We did not. It wasn't our bomb." And don't forget this, and keep this in the back of your mind, ladies and gentlemen. When you've got in a firing squad situation, let's say there are 6 people that are using rifles to shoot someone in a firing squad in the death penalty. One of the 6 has got a blank in their gun. You wouldn't know it's a blank because it goes off as usual, but the other 5 are real live bullets. So none of the people that are on the firing line that are shooting the condemned man or woman know if they had the blank in their gun. That's so they can go home and look at themselves in the mirror and know that it wasn't, or have a doubt whether they were actually the one that pulled that put a bullet in the condemned person's body. It's that kind of thought process. But I just want to keep that in the back of your mind. But could it be that on that Thursday, when all hell broke loose, literally, that they thought that they were going to get their money for doing their job well done, and when in fact that there was a staged robbery at the 7-Eleven? And I look, we don't know all the details. But certainly the people at the 7-Eleven said, "Oh no, the people who did the robbing did not appear to be the same people as the Boston Marathon. As the 2 brothers, of course, we saw the pictures, so we didn't. No, it didn't appear to be the same people. So there's already a question, is there not? There's already a question there. So something happened where the handler had decided, and the people behind this decided that they could not allow the guy or the brother to be alive. So they staged this robbery. There was a police officer that was shot twice in the back of the head. I believe it was twice. And there was a shootout there. Ultimately, the younger brother, allegedly, ran over the older brother, killed him. He got away. And of course, the rest is history, as they say, and the rest is, a house-to-house search. But here you have the demonization of the Chechen terrorists.
And
go ahead.
I didn't mean to jump in.
No, that's fine. Jump in.
On April 18th, off of Natural News, there's an article, photos, private military operatives hired to work the Boston Marathon with backpacks, radiation detectors, and tactical gear. Natural News confirmed at least 5 private military contractors were operating on the scene at the Boston Marathon and that they carried black backpacks, which look very similar to the backpacks carrying the pressure cooker bombs. The media is completely censoring any mention of these craft operatives, craft being the name of former company Blackwater, pretending they do not even exist. And I will post the link in the chat room, but I'm sure if you guys haven't seen it, there was a man walking around with a Geiger counter or some type of detection device, air detection device, chemical detection device, and right after the bombing exploded. So my question is, who is there ready with a radiation or chemical weapon detector where moments after a bomb goes off, they have it ready out and using it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Looking for potentially a dirty bomb. Now, it's possible. It could it be possible that these people thought that they were participating in a drill, or could these people possibly have been were told to bring those detectors? Or this is where the minutia will pile us down here. Of course, we're working on a bigger, or I shouldn't say working on. What we're doing is we're looking at this. What we're trying to do is get people to think bigger. Because here's the problem with getting involved in the real minor details at the moment, and I'm saying at the moment, is because we have to see where this. We have to look at this in the larger sense. We're not thinking big enough, because when you start looking at who benefits. Why doesn't Boston make any sense? Who was present there? Of course, the news were present there. The Chechens were present there. The FBI, Foreign Intelligence, State Department people were there. The Boston event, folks, occurred not on the stage of the United States, but on the world stage. By not understanding how it fits in, we're missing the larger picture. By asking who benefits, we're starting to get a clearer picture. It benefits the Saudis, because if we can effectively make the case that Chechen terrorists are here in the United States, and actually Chechen terrorists are a growing threat to the security of the United States, is it not reasonable to go after the Chechen terrorists where they live, like we did with the Taliban? And in so doing, who does that benefit? That benefits the Saudis. That benefits the Saudis so they can expand their pan-Islamic state. And who is, once again, who is this in service to? It's the Saudis. And every time we turn around, whether it's Benghazi, or even the stopping of the pipeline here in the United States, who does that benefit? It benefits the Saudis and the globalists, the internationalists. So we're not thinking big enough here. That's the whole picture. And I truly believe, Joe, in closing, in this, based on, especially when you have the admission that the older brother was known to the authorities, I shouldn't say authorities, but to the intelligence agencies, that we have a situation where these two men were assets and were involved in a larger plot to expand the theater of war to include the country of Chechnya to go after, just like they did 9/11 and the Taliban. And by doing so, it's expanding the regional influence and power base by using the mobsters. The mobsters are the Muslim Brotherhood, to take the war to the terrorists and to overtake the territory. By the way, money is going to the Muslim Brotherhood in Chechnya via the State Department. You've got to understand that as well. The money is going to, there's money, I think it's $1 billion. I don't know the exact number. I have to double check this, but it's in the billions that the State Department is providing the Muslim Brotherhood in Chechnya to destabilize that area as well. This is not what we're hearing on the news. So when you look at this in its entirety, the gun running operation in Benghazi, it furthers the Saudi goals. For example, not drilling here and stopping the pipeline furthers the Saudi goals. Everything furthers the Saudi goals. So when you see the bow, it's just not a bow. It is a bow of submission. Go ahead.
And it's not just the Saudi goals. It is the New World Order goals.
Right. And I should end it by saying this. Behind the Saudi goals, don't forget, it's the petrodollar that is behind the petrodollar is important to this, but behind Saudi Arabia, the people who are dangling or handling Saudi Arabia are the globalists. And see, once the Saudis are done with us, our military might, they're going to toss us aside, essentially. But this is to create a new world order. We're not thinking big enough, is what I'm saying. If people look at this and say, "Well, it's the motives are there are certain motivations here." This is why none of the details make a lot of sense, is because our sight is being limited to seeing only what we are told to see. We have to look and connect the dots, because this goes well beyond Boston, well beyond the United States, and even well beyond Chechnya. It goes all throughout the pan-Islamic structure. And this is pitting us against the Russians. Russia, and I can get into the details about Russia, but think about this. In the end, okay, this further will destabilize that area, including Syria, and will hasten and exacerbate the already bad situation. So what I'm saying to you in summary is this is much part of a bigger plan
that has been spelled out in prophecies in the Bible. We know the alliances that will be made, the North armies, the South armies, the Gog and Magog war. All the things we're seeing today are leading up to this. We are witnessing the beginning and ending of the birth pains, and could very soon see the beginning of the tribulation. Things are looking bad. Other headlines, as we're breaching the break here, we want to get into. Massive uncontained leak at Fukushima, pouring over 710 billion baraquils of radioactive materials into atmosphere. Also, 1,000 Japanese officers to participate in island recapture drill in California. More foreign troops training on American soil, as well as the Defense Department holding an urban warfare exercise in Tinley Park last night and today and tonight. Department of Defense is holding an urban warfare training exercise at the former Tinley Park Mental Health Center tonight and tomorrow. This article from yesterday. Village officials have announced the government training exercisers will include building breaching, and helicopter operations. Building breaching involves the use of small explosives that are used to take outdoors, explained Pat Carr, the Emergency Management Agency's director. The Mental Health Center grounds provide a very realistic training environment for those different types of exercises, he says. And what exercises are they talking about? Exercises like coming to local hospitals or schools or other buildings of that nature when they're ready to round people up for their FEMA camp visits. And folks, those are coming. These urban warfare scenarios, these drills, the SWAT teams that we saw in Watertown, Boston, at gunpoint, removing forcibly innocent families from their home against the rights that are afforded to us in the Constitution. And the news doesn't bat an eye and the people cheer. How long until they come to your house and pull you out at gunpoint? And will it be real? Like this, not that the Boston thing wasn't real, but real enough to the point where that'll be the last time you see your house. And we're up against the break. Folks, if you want to call in, we'll take calls during the third hour, 661-244-9839. That's 661-244-9839. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Wednesday, April 24th. I almost said November. On a side note, my father tomorrow will be having some dental procedures done that were delayed from last month, but he will be here. It will be interesting to hear how he sounds
We'll be right back with our third hour, taking your calls, hitting news and more. Stay with us.
Hi, folks. Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eilita Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
Mired in a struggle for economic supremacy and military domination of Asia, the U.S. and China are now contesting the moral high ground as well. Beijing's released its latest brief on the human rights situation in America in response to a similar report from Washington. A reckless foreign policy, indiscriminate wiretapping, and race-based rights were just some of the issues being brought up. RT's Alexei Rashevsky reports.
After years of swallowing accusations of violating human rights, Beijing is fighting back. Last year, the U.S. State Department issued its Scolding Human Rights Practices report. Now China held a mirror to Washington. The U.S. again accused China of limiting internet freedoms. The so-called Great Firewall of China, where Beijing has long been under scrutiny for blocking many Western websites such as Facebook, Google, and YouTube. But those criticizing China are no saints. The innocuous-sounding PIPA, SOPA, and CISPA bills to control internet data have made waves across the Atlantic lately. And the U.S. government approved interception of private text messages and emails for security needs are hardly contributing to online freedom. China's single-party political system and lack of democratic elections also came under fire. The Chinese report made a swipe back at America's multi-party system, saying that in what seems to be a democratic process, it's really not the people, but the amount of money spent on campaigns which really decides the winners. The largest part of the U.S. report was dedicated to human rights as they are today. From harsh labor conditions to poor salaries, indeed, China's status of being the world's factory is nothing new. And the cheap labor force concept has long been debated. Beijing hit back with a scathing claim that in the country where racism and discrimination officially do not exist, Afro-American and Hispanic employees earn 40% less than the white population in the United States. And that's to the glass ceiling for women who on average earn a 20% smaller salary than men. The U.S. report also lashed out at the treatment of prisoners and members of opposition in China. Contrast that with country which runs the notorious Guantanamo prison and the allegations of multiple human rights abuses within its walls, with China highlighting full statistics on all inmate deaths in U.S. prisons and the use of brutal force against peaceful demonstrators in 2012. It is no secret that China has a checkered human rights record, but by countering the claims of those who it believes should get its own house in order, it is quite clear that Beijing no longer wants to see a monopoly in the market of examining human rights.
RT's Alexei Rashevsky reporting there. And in the meantime, Eric Draitzer, an analyst at stopimperialism.com, he says there is a link between those nations labeled rights defenders and those who are opposed to U.S. interests.
For the United States to talk about human rights, it's incredible hypocrisy when you have a massive hunger strike going on in the concentration camp known as Guantanamo, when the United States has engaged in violating the human rights of the people of Libya, of the people of Syria, of countless other nations around the world. The Chinese certainly have a lot to answer for in terms of their own human rights record, but we should also remember, too, that it is the United States which monopolizes control of international institutions such as Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Doctors Without Borders, and so forth, which act as the arbiters of human rights, sitting in judgment of countries whether they are or are not violators. I'm not suggesting that there aren't good people who work within some of these organizations, or that the organizations themselves don't sometimes do good work, but often whatever the United States determines to be human rights violation is. Whatever the United States does is not a human rights violation.
You want answers? I take every title you want, and I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our third and final hour this Wednesday, April 24th, on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Joe Hagmann here with my co-host, Doug Hagmann, and we will be taking your calls this third hour while going through other important news, and things are just really bad all around. I'm looking here, I was informed by
they're ramping up.
A listener and friend in Colorado about some drills that were going to be taking place, and he's going to be calling in. I'm waiting to see if he's in studio queue here, and while we're waiting for him to call, we were going to go to the phones. We'll take 804 area code first. 804, you are live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. And I hear the delay. I heard the my voice in the background. 804, are you there? All right. Going back on hold. Okay, we have our friends from Colorado on the line. I'm going to bring them on now. You are live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hello, Joe. Hello, Doug. Good talking to you again.
Nice talking to you as well.
Hey, Tom.
What I wanted to let you know of, the one that I found on the Ford's news site was a Facebook page memorial that was taken down. It was set up some time ago. It was a memorial to a nuke event that was supposed to happen on April 28th of this year in L.A. The next one was, I believe it was on Steve Quayle's site, and it was either drills or what appears to be drills going to be between May 7th and May 29th, 3 different cities in the United States. One would be Denver, one would be New Hampshire, and the other would be Washington, D.C. And those were billed to be either biological and or chemical.
Wow.
So, and Washington, D.C. could also possibly be nuclear.
Tell me again where
the exact dates.
Where are you getting this information
Denver,
from? No, I mean,
well, that one was Steve Quayle's alert site. Had the May 7th through the 29th, and anywhere in between there for those 3 cities, Denver, New Hampshire, of course, New Hampshire, I can't remember the name of the exact town, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and Washington, D.C. So that's what I know, and I called my friends in Denver and let them know that they need to be watching during that period of time so that they can get out of town, because they work out of town in the western slope, and so they're not able to get out of town either or out or into town. during that time, they'll know why, and to stay clear. So.
Yeah, we are seeing a huge amount of increase in these drills. And I just found New Hampshire small draft permit overview. This is okay. That's not it. But no, there are drills being carried out.
Oh, the thing I remember, Joe, that I wanted to tell you, that they found out one that they said on that drill for Denver, New Hampshire, and Washington, D.C., if in fact it's a drill, is that they are going to be making it as lifelike and realistic as possible, with the media reporting on the hour, every hour, live. So it's like fear tactics, and we don't know what to believe, what not to believe at this point.
Exactly. It's so convoluted that we can't even discern hardly what is important and what is not important.
But you know what, caller? What I find interesting, and I think what people need to know is, we're kind of demonized for talking about, even for example, Boston Marathon, even bringing up the possibility of a false flag event, or what you're talking about, or regardless. Are we wrong? Because based on historical context,
No.
look at the drills that have taken place.
No, we're not wrong, Doug, with that. And I saw a website thing, and it was on Before It's News as well, about the amputee, the quadriplegic amputee that had supposedly gotten his legs blown off and during that marathon. And a guy had done an analysis on it who was must have been a doctor or something, because he knew every part of the body to call the body parts. And they were actually putting this prosthesis leg on this quadriplegic on the ground, and then spreading the blood around afterwards, and then they gave the thumbs up sign, okay, you can get out of the way of view so the camera can get a good shot of the guy with his legs blown off. But there was no femoral artery blood spurting. There was no big amounts of blood on the ground. In 2 minutes, with femoral arteries and both legs being there, you only have five quarts of blood, and you would have bled out, and within 5 minutes you'd have been dead.
Right, 3.5 liters.
They showed pictures of this guy in a wheelchair, rolling away, alert and awake, mind you, with no blood spurting, no blood coming out underneath the wheelchair, on the ground, nothing. So it's all BS.
I agree.
I find I saw that picture. I found it interesting in a number of respects. I'll just have to say that I think some of these things that we're seeing, some of the images that we're seeing, because we're in the age of digitization, they can be manipulated so easily. We could be fooled. I mean,
what's really interesting, Doug, I saw a picture of a guy that was walking away on his cell phone, kind of looking down and walking away from where the bomb site was, and you could see kind of down by his leg on the ground, somebody was pulling away the rubber blood that they had on the ground, was pulling it away towards them out of the picture scene. And another thing is, think about the blood. Now, blood typically, after it sits in the air for a period of time, it darkens, right? Well, this blood was as red could possibly be, as if somebody took red paint, bright red paint, and put it down on the ground. I've been around enough blood. I'm an ex-cop, so I know, what it's about. I've seen it, been around it, covered many fatals, and I know what it looks like.
I got to ask you, sir, as an ex-police officer, have you taken Herb McDonald's course on blood spatter analysis?
Say that again?
I just want to ask you, because you were an ex-police officer, at any time during your career, did you take Herb McDonald's class on blood spatter analysis, the forensic discipline of blood spatter analysis at all?
No.
Okay. The reason I'm asking.
No, I took the first responder training and all of that, to how to handle things in a first responder type situation, and even the things they were doing with a guy that supposedly had a back injury there. They had the backboard on the ground, and this lady had this guy sitting upright and trying to do a traction on his neck when you never ever do that. That right there is in the training. You never do that. They're always laying on their back. And if you're going to traction them, you traction them on their back on the backboard. You immobilize them so that they can't move and do any more damage. This lady, kind of had her knee against his back and was trying to do an upright traction in a sitting position while this guy was sitting. You never do that.
No, exactly. And I just want to circle back around to what's your commentary on the blood. I'm a graduate of the Forensic Academy from blood spatter analysis, the forensic discipline, and I understand. Looking at the blood spatter, you could tell that definitely there were injuries, fatalities, and what have you. It was obvious, but there were also images that didn't quite make sense to me from a forensic point of view. You pointed one out where the coloring of the blood was after a period of time it discolors. It achieves certain characteristics where it's blood as opposed to red paint, for example. I mean, it's clear. Exactly. So some of these pictures don't make sense.
Exactly. And so you put two and two together and you come up with a big fat lie.
Well,
and everybody is being sold that, and of course the media bites on that, and they run with it because that's what the government's telling them to do with it.
But you know what, caller? I'm still thinking too that we're so immersed in the evidentiary details, which I agree we should be, but we also must be looking at the larger picture. What's really going on here? Who benefits? Follow the money. The bigger picture. So we need to work together.
Yeah, and I agree with Don because he makes good points, and you're making a good point too. I mean, but we're never going to figure out what's going on in the world fully. We're never going to know the extent of the evil. That's why I always say we need to focus on ourselves.
Well, there's somebody that knows, and one fine day, and it may be when the Lord, shows and takes us all home. That'll be the day that it's exposed. But I guarantee you, it will be exposed.
Yep. And that's where I was headed.
It'll all be in the light.
And we'll know who did what, when, where, and how. Probably from all the meantime, controversial events from beginning of history to the end of history.
But I still think we have to. And
we have a duty.
We have a duty to look,
To a certain extent. I mean, we can't get engulfed in this to the point it is hindering us from other things that we need to be doing in our lives. But especially... Yeah, I mean, it is hard enough to manage our own lives at times with our own families, our own problems, our own set of circumstances going on, let alone to keep up with all the information put out on the news, then trying to decipher which is important, which isn't important, and going from there, we don't have time for all that.
I would rather die, not as a sheeple being led to the slaughter, at least with my eyes open, knowing what's coming at me, than just sitting there and with the ostrich syndrome. You pull your head out of the sand, look around, and go, "What happened? What happened to my country? This isn't America anymore. The America I knew."
I'm 100% in agreement with you, and that's why we're fighting this.
You think we'll ever see that America you knew again?
What's that?
Do you think you'll ever see the America you knew again?
No,
or you think
I don't believe we'll ever see the America we knew ever again. No. Okay. I do not believe we will. And that's sad. It's very, very sad. But no, I don't think we'll ever see it again.
Yeah, I do agree with
you. The Illuminati, the Burger Group, are making darn sure their agendas are pressed, and everybody else, either complies or dies. And that's pretty much the bottom line of it all.
Well, I'll tell you what I think we need to do is expose as much as we know, as much as possible, work together and to expose the lies of the people, to wake as many people up to what's taking place. And from there,
and the only way that's going to happen, Doug, is if all the people have their eyes and ears open as to what's going on, and they go to somebody like you and Joe and expose it for what it is, and it becomes viral. That's the only way, we even stand a chance, if we network.
I agree.
And
Very
networking
good.
is everything.
Right on, man. And let's keep networking to the best of our ability. Anything you find, and I urge all listeners to send me whatever they might find. I mean, of course, I get hundreds of emails, some the same in terms of, pictures and what have you. I mean, if they're common on the internet, certainly, I'm sure I've seen them, but if you've got something particular, send it to me or Joe. Our email addresses are right on the front page at HomelandSecurityUS.com. We look at every email. We certainly can't respond to every one, but we definitely read every email that we get. So, Don, thank you very much for your call. God bless you, my friend.
Oh, you're very welcome, and it's a pleasure talking to you guys again, and have a blessed evening.
You too, sir.
See you later. Have a good night, Don. All right. That was Don from Colorado. He sends information, especially when those fires were going on out there in Colorado last spring, summer, or last fall. The reports of Russian troops out there starting fires. They were close to his house, and he was giving me information at least about what was taking place there when that was happening. And now he's on to some drills that are happening. And, I think we should all, if we have an extra couple minutes, start searching for any type of drills being carried out anywhere in America, but each of us should focus on our areas first, and maybe we can get ahead of these things a little bit, because if we expose they're having drills on certain days or events before they do these, it could reduce the risk of them actually trying to do something. But in most cases, the drill probably won't be pre-announced or won't be made public that they're having a drill, at least not until after the fact of the drill and the event happening. But anyway, we'll move on. Next caller, 856. I think this is Sheila. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Sheila.
It just made me mad that... Hi. It just made me mad that he had to call in with the thought in his mind that these creeps are going to do something with one of these nuclear plants, just in the fact that he has to think it. And he has to call people he knows and warn them. That's where we're at. It just irks me that we have to think that about our own government. I may be wrong here, but when this all happened Monday, I thought the first thing, they're at it again. That was the first thought that came to mind. And from what I saw of it, and I did go over on Alex's website, and he had Booger's pictures all over the place, and I saw, these crab contractors that was there. I mean, there was no denying that, and after people started leaving, they were over in the bleachers looking for something underneath, and whatever they were looking for, they found it, So, and there was a lot of suspicious people there. Most of them had backpacks, and a lot of, I looked at every one of them, and there was one particular one that had a backpack on. It was a man, and whatever he had in the back of his backpack was shaped like a pressure cooker, and Alex's people had it outlined. So I don't know what to make of that, but I will tell you this, from where I'm sitting and what I saw, I think they did this, they were willing to kill innocent people to see if they could go door to door and get control of the people in the city of Boston. Because these people couldn't even go out to get a loaf of bread or a quart of milk, nothing. I saw a video today. It was the first and only one I saw over on Now the End Begins. A neighbor had his video camera, and he was videotaping the house across the street from him where the cops and the militarized police went to their home, and they pretty much broke the door in, and they went in, and the people, there must have been 6 people in there and a German Shepherd, and they all one by one came out with their hands on their head. Their dog was barking, and I'm thinking, they're going to kill this dog. You saw a grandmother come out, hands on her head. The more I looked at that, the madder I was getting. I could not believe that our own police departments can do this to their own people. And the thing is, they took the people right down just away from their home and had them stand in a group. And they had the guns pointed at them. I don't know what all they were saying to him, but this man caught everything on video. And they stood there in a group, and the cops had their guns pointed at them, and then finally they let them one by one go back in the house, and the German Shepherd's running around there, barking. I'm thinking, they're going to shoot this dog, but they didn't. But I was just flabbergasted that it happened, and I say that they were willing to do this to see if they could get control over the people, and they got what they wanted. They got what they wanted. There was one man that I read about that decided to go to work, and he was pulled over and asked why he was out, and he said, I'm going to work. And he said, well, if you can get back home, do it. So legally, he couldn't stop it. He couldn't make him not go to work. You know what I mean? They knew that, But that is my take on that whole thing. The whole city. I mean, and then to clap their hands after all said and done. It's just, I'm not going to kowtow these people.
Sheila, I can almost understand the cheers for finally the situation being over, but I think even without regard to whatever the incident was, if you take the actual incident out of the equation, you're seeing the martial law. I mean, you're seeing nothing. There's no other way to describe it but martial law in a big city in America. Can you imagine the billions of dollars? Folks, think about the billions of dollars that were actually lost that day, or over that 24-hour period where everything was shut down, and there were tanks.
Exactly.
I don't want to say tanks, but military vehicles on the street, and you had paramilitary officers going house to house. Are we not seeing this engineering and conditioning because of this incident? I think we are. And even, once again, even removing the cause, look at the blowback, look at the result, but then look at the people as well. And I know that there's the relief factor, but there's also the I'm not getting it through my head factor of what's really going on. So, Sheila, you're right. Man, not good.
Well, what scares me more than anything is the people didn't recognize that for what it was. A whole city. Here a while back, you had a cop that was fired, and he killed, 4 police officers up in Great Bear. You didn't see him shutting down Los Angeles and Great Bear to get him.
Well,
and that's
right.
What scares me. The people ain't. I can't understand how they cannot see it. I ain't smart. I'm not smart, but I can see it. You can see what they're doing.
Exactly,
and I think bought it. And the people bought it.
Well, and that's it. And if you don't think, if people don't think that what we're seeing here is a beta test or an alpha test or whatever test for martial law to gauge the people's reactions to what's taking place. You see, I think we can learn from this. And Sheila, you and others, we can learn from this example, because if this happens in your town, and I believe it will, not because necessarily, of a bombing, but think about when the dollar is killed off. And once again, they're planning on this. There will be anarchy in the streets.
you know, you mentioned a little while ago about the food stamp thing and how they're wanting people to get on the food stamps, you know, again. And they're doing this knowing that it's all going to collapse, and when it does, that's all the more people that's going to get mad because they ain't going to get the food stamps, and then they're all going to be in the streets.
Exactly.
It's anarchy coming. You know, it's a financial thing. Cloward Piven. It just blows my mind that people ain't seeing it. You know, I talked to my friend today. She's the only one I can talk to about this mess. She can see it. And I put my phone on speaker, and I went out in the kitchen. My son was in the room doing some work, and I can't talk to him. And we were talking back and forth, and I knew he could hear everything I said. And I said, you know, I don't care what my son thinks or what, you know, what I'm doing. And I said, but I'm preparing for what's coming, and it's going to be ugly. And I said it just so he would hear. He didn't say anything, but I know he heard it. You know, because there's no reason. I got into it this afternoon with my sister over this situation in Boston and what the police are doing. She swears up and down they're military. And I told her no, they have police written right on, you know, on the back of their backs. And I just backed off of that. You know, there wasn't no point in arguing with her. But, and I got to tell you, Doug, I gave you and your son here about an hour. And I went on your website. That was the first place I went looking for something, you know, and you was finally able to put up something, you know, and I knew you had to wait and see what all went, you know, was going on and whatnot. And then I just followed you as you went along because I felt at that time I needed to be with somebody that was like-minded. And you were it.
Well, we have so much, Sheila, and listeners, so much information. And and I said this before, I'd much rather be on solid ground, and so would Joe, before we put something up on our website, to be sure of the facts, to be sure of everything, rather than be, just throw up a lot of news items that you can get elsewhere. Let's not clutter the airwaves, so to speak. Let's be very definitive first, and be sure we're on solid ground. But we are preparing many articles that will tie these things together, because once again, people aren't looking big enough. The lie is big, and it's different at every level. And I trust my sources enough to know that when they say, look, it's not what it seems to be, but then you've got to be able to articulate that in digestible pieces so people can understand. Because if you throw everything at someone, it's overwhelming, and holy cow, it could be just a terrible, it could be a traumatic experience. Yes, so, but you're right.
Cling to the cross.
Yes, we do. We do. And Joe's good at reminding me of that. Yes. Oh, and you know what? If you're like you with your son, with your sister, with your folks, with your family members, and I know how difficult this is, but if you can just try to wake them up, to show them what's happening here, and even if you can introduce the smallest, tiniest seed of information, and nudge them in the direction of reality, combined with the Word of God, I think we're doing a good thing. I think we're playing our positions where we have to advise others. Because I think, Sheila, God put you here for a reason. God puts you here for a reason. And everyone listening to this program, you're here today for a specific purpose. Play your zone.
Well,
play your position.
You know what? I've told him before, I live here with him. He didn't want me to live alone after I lost my husband. And he sees how I struggle, and I had mentioned the rapture to him a while back. And he said, you actually believe that, don't you? And I said, yeah. He said, just like a puff of smoke, you're just going to be gone. I said, yeah, I do believe that. My Bible was very clear about that. And I said to him, I said, you see every day how I struggle. I said, haven't you ever asked yourself how I do it, how I get through every day? And he just looked at me, and I said, Jesus Christ is the one that gets me through every day. When I put my feet on the floor in the morning, I can thank him that I can still do it. I said, I'm pretty much homebound at this point. I'm in therapy right now, trying to get myself back on my feet. But I said, that's how I get through every day. And I said, if you can't see that,
Yeah.
if you can't see that, without him, I cannot survive. I won't. I would not survive without him.
We can't
About
survive.
half a body don't. No, you can't. I have tried to picture myself living without him. I can't. I can't picture it.
And we
can't.
don't even understand how
Go ahead.
through him we get our strength on this earth, and without him we would not be we wouldn't even be able to lift up ourselves up off the ground.
No, exactly. That's why you see so many people like to claim it's snapping. And all this.
Right.
And we ain't seen nothing yet. Well, I get on my face every night, and I thank God for every day he gives me, no matter whether it's a good day, bad day, whatever. I thank God for it every day. And I thank him for you and Joe, both of you, and True News, and everybody on the internet here that's telling the truth. He's using you to get the truth out, so we can be ready. And I was talking to the Lord last night, and I knew, if these people come banging on my door, God's going to show me how to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to show me how to deal with that.
And I think everyone would be wise to think that way.
Yeah. And if
we have to. We have to. Because I'm telling you, I tend to be a lot like Peter. I want to get in their face and say, what, do you dress up for Halloween?
No, exactly.
That's what I
confrontational, angry. I've been through that and know exactly how you're feeling. That's why you keep a gun close
with it every day, Joe, just like you.
And your Bible closer.
I think about what you said here a while back, how you got to deal with the anger or what you're seeing and what you're hearing every day. And I think about that, and it reminds me. It reminds me. So everything you say, I pay very close attention to both of you. Everything that you say, because there's always something to learn from it.
And
so I thank God for both of you.
And Sheila, we're learning as we go too, through our guests, through our callers.
We're in a place. We're in a place where we've never been before, and God is the only one can get us through it, step by step. That's the only way we can do it and deal with it.
Absolutely. Amen. Sheila, God bless you. Thank you so very much for your wisdom and insight tonight. And you take care. And remember, you're not alone in this fight. Play your position.
I know I'm not.
Play your zone, play your position. Know that you're here for a reason. And keep up the fight.
Play other people's positions too while you're at it. Why not?
Yeah.
Right?
Sheila, God bless you. Thank you, my friend.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. I just, Joe, I just got a notice here that Congressman...
Foreclosure?
Yeah, could be.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's mortgage 1 or mortgage 2. When I was getting my taxes done, it was kind of funny because the accountant said, how many houses do you have? I said, what do you mean? Well, Seems like you got too many mortgages for. Never mind. I just got a notice here. Congressman speaks out on behalf of Christians and military. This is dated today. I'm sorry. This is actually dated for tomorrow. And I'm thinking it could be because of this was sent from overseas. The United States Army has blocked the website of the Southern Baptist Convention from government computers, saying the Christian site contains hostile content. An Army officer assigned to a U.S. base said he tried to access the Southern Baptist Convention, sbc.net to be precise, from his government computer. But instead, he got a message that said the site was being blocked by Team CONUS, continental United States. Team CONUS protects the computer network of the Department of Defense. The message says the site you have requested has been blocked by Team CONUS due to its hostile content. So the Southern Baptist Convention is now considered hostile to the U.S. Army. It just corroborates the recent string of events highlighted by the American Family Association. This is just another example, Joe, of Christianity coming under attack in the military.
Yeah, and let me tell you on another side, we listened to Mark Potok and his Southern Poverty Law Center hate groups a few weeks ago, and all the MSNBC hosts that jumped on the bandwagon and did shows about the crazy, delusional, right-wing, one-wing government thinking, conspiracy-minded Christian terrorists and hate groups. Well, one of the questions was raised to him on CNN was, didn't your one of your anti-gay listings lead to a crime? And, he said, yeah, it didn't lead to a crime. Well, it's come out, FBI video. Domestic terrorist says he targeted a conservative group for being anti-gay. And he lists the Southern Poverty Law Center's own hate group manual as where he got I guess this guy wanted to blow up a Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
And he said he heard that the Southern Poverty Law Center's report listed anti-gay places, so he went there, found what he was looking for, found his place to attack. And there's a video up on this website here, the Washington Examiner. I'll post this article in chat, but
what we're seeing, Joe, too,
we see all these groups they list that aren't criminals. The only reason there's such a huge increase in hate groups, as they say, is because they've changed the definition of what a hate group is. Not because that there's more violence from these groups or these people. It's because now if you don't like or don't accept homosexual marriage as being normal, you're a hate group. If you don't accept abortion as being normal, you're a hate group. And now they're starting to list these. Now, if you are a Christian, you are part of a hate group. And that is why the increase in hate groups. But his reporting leads people, it's like a manual of who's left in the country that will stand up for liberty, freedom, life, and justice. So it could be construed as a target list, but I'm not saying it's that. But this guy kind of dodged the question and passed the buck, said it wasn't, his report.
It is, though, because if you look at, for example, Daniel Greenfield had recently written about a Muslim attacking a non-Muslim while shouting Allahu Akbar, yet no one could figure out a motive. This involves... this took place in Paris, and folks, if you look at what's taking place here in North America, specifically the United States, it's the European, I want to say the European template, if you will, using the European template to put it here in the United States to socialize the entire world under this one world governance. But here's a real quick case. A Muslim person went to cut the throat of a rabbi, and the police saying, while shouting Allahu Akbar, yet the police are saying the motive is unclear. They refuse to classify it as a hate crime, and the Washington Post reported on this, saying that the rabbi sustained a neck injury in an altercation. Bottom line is, it's incomprehensible what is taking place. Anything Christian is bad, anything Islamic is good. The end game is a state religion that will water down Christianity, will elevate Islam because of its political structure, and will basically take out the Jewish faith as well. So just want to let you know that this involves Christianity as well.
We're going to go back to the phones. Okay, area code 708, we're going to come to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. 708.
Hello, Joe. Doug?
Yes.
Good evening. Shalom, gentlemen.
Shalom.
Oh, what's on your mind?
Hey, I have just become a new listener to your program within the last week. Just wanted to say it's very refreshing, and I don't know if you're aware of it or not. Your website seems to be crashing tonight. Not able to follow your program for more than a few seconds before you go down. So you're
the
gaining
broadcast?
popularity. Yeah, the broadcast.
What platform,
really
sir? What platform are you listening? Are you listening at Blog Talk Radio, or are you listening at the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com?
I am on Blog Talk Radio.
Okay. A couple of things. They're undergoing some severe, I don't know, issues. But if you want to switch to the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com, you can get a clearer and uninterrupted flow of information. And oftentimes, too, your settings on your computer might be cutting off. Unless I'm missing something, your settings might close out the program because it detects a period of inactivity, doesn't recognize that you're listening to a program. I could be wrong, but you might want to check the settings on your computer. But the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com is an alternative location to listen to the program.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. You have a blessed week.
Well, God bless you, and shalom, and thank you so much for listening. Is there anything else that you wanted to comment on aside from the audio issue?
Well, just that I think as a Christian, a believer in Christ, I consider myself a born again Christian, and I see that there's a lot of fear, hype that comes through the mainstream media with all the events that have been happening, the Boston and Sandy Hook and Aurora, and I just want to remind everybody that the Lord did not place authority on this earth with the government. Amen. He placed it in His body. And we are the final authority on this earth here. And we were placed here to occupy till He returns. And I'm not advocating physical violence of any means, but we are supposed to occupy and hold our ground, no matter how tyrannical our government becomes. We are supposed to hold our ground and not give up. And so I just want to encourage everybody that this is more than a media matter. It's a spiritual matter. And we, as the body of Christ, are the ones that possess the upper hand with power and authority that flows from the throne of heaven by His grace to us here. And 1,000 will fall at our side and 10,000 at our right side, but it's not going to come near us because we dwell under the shadow of the Almighty. No plague or calamity is going to befall our dwelling place. No matter what they're doing with HARP, no matter what they're doing with chemtrails, no matter what they're doing with the GMO foods, the vaccines, the fluoridation, the chlorination in the water, no matter what kind of ungodly laws are passed involving same-sex marriage, abortion, that we are more than conquerors through him. And I just want to speak a word of encouragement to the body. Don't give up. Keep praying at all times and pray for the government, even though it's obvious that wickedness has overrun our government. It is a spiritual matter, and we can drive the enemy out. No weapon formed against us shall prosper because we have the greater one inside of us. When the enemy comes in like a flood, the Lord will raise up a standard against him, and he will be scattered before our face in 7 directions. Amen.
Amen. Wow, could not have said that any better. I want to thank you for imparting that wisdom, and I do say wisdom to the listeners. God bless you, sir. Thank you so much for your call.
Thank you, brothers.
All right. Wow.
There's some
Very
fantastic
powerful
callers.
And we have to occupy. Meaning we have to play our positions, and we have to hold our ground, because that's what, in my view, that's what God's telling us to do.
Right. We can't go out hunting.
No, but
we have to play our defense, our defensive areas when needed, and maintain our line in the sand. And that line is what the Lord wills. They try to push us to go contrary to that word. That's where it stops.
Right, but I think too, in closing to that comment, is I think that everyone alive today, and I truly in my heart believe this, everyone alive today is alive today for a reason, and I believe that we have this reason. We have to play our position. We have to recognize what our specific job is. And my intelligence friend said this, don't read other people's mail, read yours. In other words, and I think Jesus might have said this with his apostles, I've given you a job to do. Do your job. Don't worry about what other people are doing. And I think that's what we have to do, is do our job. So that's kind of my thought process there.
All right. Let's move on to the next caller.
We don't screen calls, folks.
Area code 832. We only got 7 minutes left. 832, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, guys. I just want to pass on some information. I didn't hear the whole show tonight, but I was on Facebook, and somebody posted, have you seen the picture that they're claiming that one of the pictures of the suspects was photoshopped?
No, I have not seen that, nor know a picture.
It's on,
which one?
It's called The Rebel. So I think it's therebel.org. And it says explosive news. I'm going to, DT, the guy's name, backpack was photoshopped out. So you might want to check that out and add that to your book of evidence or whatever, because I saw that and I looked at it, and it seems like he knows what photoshopping is. And basically the big thing is you can see where they blacked out his hand and they moved his arm. And the only thing is from what I can tell, the other pictures, he's got the backpack on either his right shoulder or left shoulder. So I'm not quite sure if that really, explains everything, but it is very interesting that this picture has been photoshopped.
Well, caller, let me ask you a question. You seem to be pretty in tune with the Boston Marathon bombing and the evidence online or the documentation online. what's your gut or what's your instinct telling you about the Boston Marathon bombing? If you don't mind me asking.
I don't mind. And if you were, I'm Laurel from South Dakota. I'm the one that called about TWIC and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, how can you not hear about the Boston Marathon? But anyway, to be honest with you, I just don't trust the government anymore. That is sad to say. So anything that comes out from any governmental official, I just don't trust. And from what I'm hearing from your program, I listen to Alex Jones' InfoWars. I mean, it's just, there's too many backpacks out there. There's too much going on. There's too many other people that could have done this. And to be told flat out, only look at this evidence. Don't look at anything else. I mean, that's classic. Look at the left hand. Don't watch what the right hand's doing. And,
right.
But I can't figure out, my thing is, I can't figure out what other than beta test for martial law, what their purpose was for this.
I think that's a big part of it.
And they certainly succeeded in that. Yeah,
well,
I think so too. And they certainly succeeded.
One of the things I mentioned during the second hour was the fact that we are tied at the hip with the Saudis. This benefits the Saudis. Two questions we ask: where's the money? Follow the money, and also who benefits? Of course, the two suspects. How did they survive? We know that there was this. We know that they existed, if you will, on welfare, food stamps, and what have you. But there was also
while attending MIT.
Yes, exactly. There had to be more than that. So who paid them? Where did their money come from? And could this be, because all of this seems to benefit the Saudis, whether directly or indirectly, could this be, in fact, a Saudi operation? We, in fact, believe it was. And we're looking at this in the larger sense.
I agree. I totally agree, and I think that's what Glenn Beck was trying to allude to. Man, I couldn't wait to hear what he had on Monday, and that was like, that's it,
Well, did you happen to? Did you happen to read? If I can ask this, and it doesn't matter if you did or not, but I'm just curious. Did you happen to read my article from yesterday? I believe it was about the Saudi national.
I'm trying to remember. I think I did, but. What point in that?
Well, what Glenn Beck was talking about.
Which one? The one that Michelle went to visit, and the third suspect or the third person. Is that who that is? I'm getting them all confused.
Oh, I know. It's so easy to do. A gentleman by the name of Al Harbi, a Saudi national, supposedly injured in the blast, shrapnel in the back of his legs.
And he's being deported?
Yes.
He's the one being deported?
Yes.
For national security reasons? Yeah.
He was supposed to be deported yesterday, I think.
Well, when they say deported, now they're going to escort him, compliments of the State Department. So really it's not a deportation. It's a prom date back to Saudi Arabia. HomelandSecurityUS.com. You can read about it.
Well, there's another one. I can't remember who did it. You guys may have brought it up, but something around the Saudis getting what's preferred passenger status or something, or preferred something status where they're not even checked when they come in and out.
Entry program.
Yes, global entry program.
Yeah. That was, I mean, my God, what is that all about,
This is a trusted travelers initiative for the Western Hemisphere Initiative through the Organization of the American States, which is an arm of the UN, basically giving you biometric information, your fingerprints, your retina scan,
90
and
seconds.
You can come and go as you please, and you pay a little fee, and you get to bypass TSA security.
Well, that's for my understanding was the Saudis have been given this blanket.
Oh, yeah.
Ability to come in and out of the country.
Yep.
Without being checked. I don't know if they have to go through that biometric background check.
We reported on this a couple weeks ago. I know what you're talking about, where the Saudis were given an unprecedented amount to come back and forth from America. And that's something that we can talk about further tomorrow. We're up against the end of the program.
Yeah, you had the
Yeah.
honor
Well,
of
listen,
closing out the show.
I just wanted to pass that on. So
Thank you
check out
very
the
The Rebel.
website. You're welcome. You guys take care.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Joe, thank you very much for being a part of. I rarely thank you, but thank you for being a part of a nice program, and it was a pleasure being with you in studio tonight. I think we had a good show.
Well, I think we had a great show too, and we were in studio last night. And
we'll be in studio tomorrow night.
And it's not a rare occurrence for me to be here either. But I thank you for having me. No, anyway,
Well,
God bless each and every one
bless
of you.
10 seconds.
See you tomorrow night, same time. And
don't forget, take a step to prepare. Take a step to prepare. Even if it's a small one, make sure you take a step tomorrow to prepare.
And stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night.